Welcome back, everybody. In our last video, we set up our quote slider to have the movie quotes sliding back and forth on an automatic slider. And now in this video, we're going to tackle the cast section, which is going to have some hover cards where the cast image flips around and shows the character image that the actor plays. You're going to set up a content management system, a CMS in Webflow, and link that all to the design that we want it to have in a little grid. So if you want to learn how to use CMS and some hover cards and grid, stick around. Okay, so we are inside of our site, and last thing we did was actually our quote section here, but because of the Lottie animation that always appears when we're doing the preview mode, I just hid that section away. So we can't see that when we're finishing designing, but that's not a problem. We're just going to go to our body, and we're going to add a new section here. It pops up right on the bottom there. I'm going to name this cast section, and the first thing I'm going to do is give it a height just so we can see what we're working with here. Give it 800 pixels, and again later we'll change this to auto, so then whatever we design in it will fill the space and just give it the height it needs. But for now, I want to be able to scroll down and see what we're working with. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is go to this little icon on the left side here. It says CMS. So again, this is the content management system, and this is where it's a great way to organize and style content that kind of repeats itself, like a blog post, something that will always be repeated often and maintain the same design style, but the content changes, or a project portfolio page on someone's website, how you can showcase different projects you've made, but it all, again, maintains the same kind of uniform design. And it's a really easy space to kind of hold this information, and that's where we're going to put all of our cast and actor photos. So when we click on the CMS over here, I'm going to create our first CMS, click plus. We can name this cast, and then right down here you'll see you have the ability to add different fields, and on the right it shows you what that current an individual cast member item looks like. So right now the only field we have is a name, and we do want that name, but I can change this just so it's a little more specific. So if I write actor name, so that's one of our first fields. Slug is an automatic field. It's kind of just where the website URL will live. We can ignore that. But I'm going to add a new field. And if you see down here, you have the ability to add all different kinds of things. You can add just regular text, rich text, which allows you to bold things, add content in between the text, and italicize. Images, multiple images, a video, a link, all these different options. So for the character name, it's just going to be plain text again, right? So I'm going to click plain text. The label will be character name. I will save that field, and you'll see on the right side here, it's already adding our custom fields. So the individual cast is growing with options. Next thing I'm going to do is add an image. This label will be actor image. And then one more image. This will be character image, because we're going to have the actor first, and then when you hover over it, it'll display the character image hidden behind it. So we want to make sure we have both accessible. Great, so those are really the only fields we need: actor name, actor image, and character image. So when I hit create collection, you'll see we don't have anything in this collection yet, so we're going to add things. You can create fake ones. They'll do a custom for you. Say you're waiting on a client to get back to you with some of the content or imagery. You can just make placeholder items so you can style and continue to move forward and not wait for that to happen. But we can create our own because we already have all of our things ready. So I'm going to click New Cast, and here it prompts us with the fields that we created, right? So first one I'm going to do, Leonardo DiCaprio, of course. Character name we know is Jack Dawson. And drag your image here. I'm going to go, I've got some things right up here. Where's Leo? Lovely Leo. Here he is. So that's the actor image, right? And now character image. Got to find Jack Dawson. Here he is. Great, and that's our Leo field. Leo DiCaprio, Jack Dawson, and the two images. I'm going to click create, and you'll see it creates an item in our collection list for the cast members. And all you have to do moving forward is just add as many as you want, and it'll create the fields and have this all saved for later so we can style it. Let's see, how do you do this? Is that right? Rose DeWitt Bucator? I'm gonna have to get you to write that one down. Titanic quotes. All right. We're gonna add image of Rose. Well, this first one is Kate. So let's see, where's Kate Winslet? One of my favorite ladies. Guys, if you haven't seen The Reader or Revolutionary Road, also two great Kate Winslet performances, and Leo's even in Revolutionary Road as well. And Kathy Bates. It's like Titanic 2, the sequel. And Jack survives. Fans actually have created like fake trailers for Titanic 2 using Revolutionary Road footage. I think it's silly. All right, so that's Kate. Rose DeWitt Bucator, Kate Winslet, create. Great, so now you see it's coming together. I'm gonna go ahead and create all of the rest of the fields really quick, and then I'll show you how we can use this information and pull from it to design. So be right back. Okay, I'm back. I finished adding all of the different cast members and actors here. So we've got our full list. That's great for now. Let's go back to our designer here. So now we have got our cast section, right? First thing I want to add inside the section is a container. Again, that's what we use for our grid up here, just so we can center everything in the middle, give it some automatic margin on the left and right. That way it doesn't grow too large when people expand their browser size. There we go, got a container. I'm going to make the height 100% of its container, which will stretch out to the section height, which we have at, it was like 800, right, for now. So I've got container. I can name this cast container. And then inside of our container, I'm going to go to our, right here, CMS. I'm going to click collection list. So this will create a collection list of whatever you have stored in your CMS already. So the only thing we have in there is our cast, which we just created. So when I go here, it's asking for the source. And when you look, if I had multiple, it would show those. But right now, obviously, we only have casts. So when I click that, you'll see it immediately recognizes all the different items we have in there, each of the cast members and actors. So right now there's no styling or anything, it's just kind of giving you a preview of all the different items that are there. And you can see in the bottom, since we made Leo and Kate, those are kind of the leads of the movie, so I'm going to reverse the order of this just so they appear first. So if I go over here in the settings of our collection list wrapper, I can click sort order, and I can click published or created on, because we created Leo and Kate first and everything, so I'm going to do oldest to newest, because then it will reverse the order, and you'll see Leo and Kate, Kathy, Billy, all that first. So that is more accurate, I think. So if you look at our navigation here, we can see we've got the section, we have our container, and inside is that collection list wrapper. So that's kind of another wrapper container for all the collection list items. And you'll see that's the list, and each individual item, which is each actor itself. So our list is what holds all the individual things, and that's where we can affect the display of this. Right now they're just stacked on top of each other, block style, but if I click grid here, you'll see it immediately creates a nice grid where it spaces them out. I could always add a third column, and you see how it does stretch it out again, but then it creates that one individual Victor Garber on the bottom, so I'm gonna get rid of one of those and just keep it that, so it's 4 or 5 and 5. All right, so we worked with grid in our last video as well. And remember, it's always easier to space things out and style things the way you want them by putting a div block inside each cell. So we've got our first div block. I'm gonna name this cast member div. And this is where the image will live and the text that'll sit beneath it, that's say the actor and the character name. And then I'm gonna put another div in here. And then this will be the photo div. And remember, that's where both photos are going to live because we want them to stack on top of each other. So that way when we hover, the other one's hidden behind it. So when we go over here, so far we're building this out. And you'll see that this only creates the breakdown for one of the items in the CMS, since they're all receiving the same styling, if that makes sense. So it's not going to have, like we have 10 cast members, it's not going to create 10 collection list items. It's just the one, and that's where you're going to edit all of them. So when we're affecting this, it affects the changes for all of them. And you'll see how I link up the individual images and things in a second. So cast member div, we've got a photos div. Inside the photos div, I'm going to create another div. I know it's getting a little stacked up here, but when you're using images, it's often helpful to use a div and set that image as the background. It just gives you a lot more flexibility and creates an even kind of transition between sizing. You can use the image element too if you're just having kind of a static image, but I often find that using a div with a background image set to your image helps a lot more. So in the photos div, I've got the actor image div, and I'm going to add another div. And this is the character image div. I'm going to make the photos div and give it a height and a width. I'm going to make the width 250, Gonna make the height 375. And in the cast member div, I'm gonna make this flex vertical center. So now you'll see that this centers this here. With my actor image selected, I can go to over settings over here. And you'll see all these dynamic style settings. Those only show up if you're working within a content management system. So since we're within our collection list wrapper, it has access to all of the different castings that we've created in all those fields. What we need obviously is the background image, right? So I'm gonna get the background image from casts. And I have two options because we do have two image properties within each of our casts. And first one we want is the actor image. So I'm gonna click that. And you'll see there that they all start to show up. It's just pixelated because it's not centered or anything. But if I go down here, I can affect the background. I'm gonna hit cover and center. There they are. You see their eyes and mouths peeking through. Not exactly what we want, but we can change that. So you know what, I'm actually gonna set this height back to auto and the width. The actor image and character image divs were the ones that's supposed to have this. So let's see. The width was 250, height was 375. There we go, that's them coming out. We can give the same one to our character image div, but first let's get that background image, right? So we go to background, select field. We're gonna use character image for these, and you'll see that they pop up there. We can do the same styling down here in backgrounds. We're gonna change the styling to cover, center, and then make sure we go back to our styling. Width will be 250, height will be 375. Beautiful. So you see as I scroll, it shows each of the fields that we had and the images we put for each cast and character. But we want them to be hidden behind each other, right? So how do you stack something in front and behind each other? We give it a absolute positioning. So we want the actor image first. So right now the character image div, we want to push that behind it. So right now it's positioned statically. We want to position this absolutely, right? So when I position absolute, and we just have to make sure our photos div, which is where both those images live, is positioned relatively. And remember, when you position something absolutely, it looks to the next relative parent to see how to position itself. So when we make this relative, so we obviously don't want them stacked like this on top of each other. So let's see, if we look, we got our photos div is relative, and then our actor image is absolutely positioned, so it knows where to look for its parent. And then the character image, we can make this one relative as well. So that way, it's right behind the other one because it's relative to the parent, and the other one is forced behind it. But if we switch the z-index of this, it'll switch the order. So if I click on actor image, I can give it a z-index of 1, and it switches. Boom. There's all of our actors right on top. There we go. But the other one is facing us right behind it, right? So we'll show you how to transition into that in just a second. But next thing I want to do is in the cast member div, we've got our two photos. I'm going to add another thing. I'm going to add a heading. I'll make this an H2. And you'll see right here, this purple. I always look for the purple boxes that is referencing the CMS list that you have created. So I'm going to get the text from the casts. And the first thing I want is the actor name. So boom, you'll see it fills in it all for us. Billy Zane, Gloria, Bill Paxton, all that. So I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna change this to actor name. The class name is gonna be actor name. I'm gonna make this 32 pixels. I'll make the color white, just so it pops out. Also in the cast member div, I'm gonna add another heading. This will be an H3, a little less important. And get the text from the cast CMS, and this will be character name. And then you'll see right below, all that appears. Class name will be character name, and I'll make this 24 pixels is good. I can make this silver. A little text styling trick that I learned: you don't want to make a header and the subheading the same color. Even if they're both white and they're popping out on the page, the reader can't really distinguish when it's two the same color. Even if you change the size, it's usually better to make it a shade darker. So usually I do the first thing, especially on like a hero section of a website, big bold color, and then if I'm using the same color, I just lower the shade a little bit so then the user can distinguish with their eyes that, oh, this is the next chunk of information. It's not all tied together. So that's why I have the character names a little bit in gray here. I'm gonna reduce the margin on top. Bring these closer, I'll reduce the margin bottom from here, make that 0. That looks pretty good. All right, so next thing I want to do is show you how to get the other image display on hover. So right now we have actor image, right? And when we scroll down, we've got the opacity set to 100, good. I'm going to add a little transition property. I'll affect all properties, 200 milliseconds, and it'll ease its way out. So when you hover over the actor image, if we go up here, we'll change the state styling. So the actor image, but in the hover state, when the user hovers over it, I want the opacity to go to 0. And it'll do this over 200 milliseconds, and it'll ease into it. Back to our none state. And we see our actors there, but when you hover over it, it turns into the character beneath. Great, and that's because the character image is stacked absolutely beneath the actor image, and then when we're just fading the opacity to 0, the thing that is behind it pops through, which is the character. Wonderful. Now the user can kind of just scroll through memory lane, see all their favorite actors and characters from the movie. R.I.P. Bill Paxton, great guy. Bernard Hill, King Theoden from Lord of the Rings. As you can see, I'm a fan of Lord of the Rings as well. It was a pretty good few years for him. You got Titanic and then the Lord of the Rings trilogy. You go, Bernard Hill. Awesome. I'm just going to add one thing to the cast section up here. I'm going to add a heading. This will be H1. We already have a class. Ooh, you see how this is floating in the middle? So let's go back to our cast section really quick. We gave it a defined height. Now we can change that back to auto. And now it will expand the entire width. That pushes our heading down here. Let's change this to section heading, right? And this will give it that gold script. Beautiful. Change this to cast. And I'll go to our navigator and move this above the container. This one doesn't have to be centered. Great, there it is right there. And then when we adjust this, it's there. You can give it some padding if you want on the left side. That'll affect all of them, remember though, so if you don't want it right on the edge, maybe like 30 pixels of padding. There we go. It affects overview, still looks okay. And you know what, on wider screens, we probably could squeeze in another row actually, so I'm gonna go to our collection list, and you know we have it on grid, right? I'm gonna add another column. So if I just click plus, automatically spaces everything out evenly into another column. Another wonder of the grid system in Webflow or web design in general. I can do this, I can make this even like that. And you can change them on different screen sizes too. So I'm gonna delete one over here. I think 3 looks pretty good for now. Adds a little more spacing. I'm gonna add one more thing to the section just to make it a little more fun. I'm gonna go to images. I'm right now in my cast section, so when I click plus to images, it will appear down there. I'm going to add this heart of the ocean. Nice transparent background there. And I'll name this heart of the ocean. I'll make sure my cast section is positioned relatively, because that way when I position this absolutely, its parent is relative, so now it knows what to be absolutely positioned for. So now I can use these. I can put this at the top of the section. I can put this on the right, which is where we want it. I'm going to move this down a little ways. Great. And then I'll get a little scroll animation, so that way when the user's scrolling on the page, it'll move around. So if I go to element trigger, I will add, while scrolling in view, I'm going to add a scroll animation. This will be called necklace scroll. So when it's 0% in view, I'm going to have it just be a little bit off to the left or the right side, so it's off screen. And then when the user gets to, I don't know, let's say 70, I will move it back out to here. Alright, so if I go to live preview, when the user is scrolling into the section, you'll see the necklace appear. Cool. And then the last thing, I'm going to go to our cast section here. I'm going to go to all elements in, which is our page load animation, right? Because when we press preview, we don't want it to be there yet. And I'm just going to add a hide and show property, just like the rest. This will be initial state, and I'm going to make this display none. But then after a 3-second delay, it will display block with the rest of the elements onto the page. There we go. We even see our quote section there that is now appearing after 3 seconds. We've got the cast section, we've got the necklace. Great, so let's save this. I'm going to go back to our home page and let's publish this. And when we view this, set sail. Got our page load animation still working. Music cues on page load. We had that 3-second delay, this faded in.
And it was. It really was.
Cards flip.
Alright, open your eyes.
Rose is turning. Turn the music off. And we have our grid. We've got our quotes cycling through with our Lottie. And there's our cast section, and our necklace comes in too. Whee! And when we hover over Kathy Bates, we see Molly Brown. We hover over Kate, we see Rose. Leo. A nice, easy grid. And the good thing is if you ever wanted to add more, say we wanted to add Fabrizio or Tommy or somebody else, we can go right to our CMS, just create a new CMS item for the cast category, and then just give it those few fields, and it'll just pop up right there. So it's so easy, and this is something good for blog posts, like I said, and you can pass this off to a client as well. So as long as you design the main layout of your CMS section, the client will be able to go in and just use those simple fields. It's really user-friendly. They can just give the blog title, publish date, add an image, type all the blog content, and when they click publish, it'll appear right there styled normally, so they don't have to reach out to a developer or designer in the middle of the night. This is one of the great selling points of Webflow, just the accessibility from the client side of things, and CMS really helps that. In the next video, we're going to build out our trivia section, have little questions and answers, some trivia from the movie. We're going to use the CMS to store the questions and answers, get a little more practice with the content management system in Webflow, and use some hover cards and some Lottie animations, so that sounds like fun. I'll see you in the next one.